benefits from keeping the lid on disclosure? We'll be digging into that and more today on the Social Dig. As I'm sure you know, the October 31st, 2022 UAP report still has not shown up. And to tell you the truth, I'm not surprised, but I have to say that I'm pretty disappointed with the ODNI because it appears to me the disclosure is not on the menu at the DoD. The report is rumored to be released later this week, so hopefully no later than Friday, November 18th, 2022. Now, what does the fact that the report being late, along with the fact that the ones who are designated to prepare it are radio silent? Is it because they're preparing the president to deliver a world-changing speech, informing us that, in fact, UAP and extraterrestrials are real, and yes, we have recovered ET tech, and yes, we have reverse engineered crafts and bombshell. We have a new energy source that will allow us to cut our dependence on fossil fuel and stop the pollution of atmosphere in its tracks. Or is it more likely a blatant disregard for the Gillibrand Amendment, which is law, or is it suppression with no care or compassion for humanity to discover the truth about our history, our place in the universe, which would no doubt alter the future of humankind? With all the stalling, excuses, and outright attempts to seed dissension in the UFO community, it definitely appears that there's an active attempt to put the lid back on disclosure, which, as we know it, has gained a lot of steam in this year of 2022, as we were witnesses to the first public congressional hearing on UFOs or UAP in 50 years. The 2023 NDAA, which includes immunity for whistleblowers, airline pilots who are now coming out daily with reports and videos of anomalous crafts being observed, or the revelations made by Stanford professor Dr. Gary Nolan, directors Randall Nickerson and James Fox, and award-winning journalist Ross Coulthart, to name a few of it, who have each stated that they either know someone or who themselves have direct knowledge and even evidence of the phenomenon being absolutely real, and also state that this release of evidence is imminent. And lastly, the DoD's own admission that the exponential increase in activity has occurred. With all the momentum towards disclosure building up through the year, it has definitely raised hope and expectations that this report may hold the final piece to that disclosure puzzle, with anticipation at an all-time high. The powers that be are showing us that they have absolutely no interest in telling us the truth. So now I ask the question, who benefits from keeping the lid on disclosure? The answer is widely believed to be the shadow government, who holds most of the secrets and controls the black budget money that is taken directly from the DoD spending budget, which in turn is taken directly from our taxes. And even though we, the people, fund this, they are not accountable to our laws, legislative branches, or us, the American people. All right, and I think what we're going to do right now is bring in one of my good friends, Mateo. All right, Mateo, so UAP report is late. Um, who, who do you feel like is keeping the lid on disclosure, and what would they benefit from this?
Man, first of all, good to see you again, Rob. It's been a while, and man,
Yes, sir.
you're asking all the
My guy,
right
Mateo.
questions and talking all the right things, man. All the way from the West Coast and all the way from the East Coast here.
That's right.
You know, you're asking the right question. What are we? Who's keeping the lid on it, and why? And why do things seem to have slowed down with late UAP reports and underwhelming congressional hearings and underwhelming information coming from the government, in spite of all that we've experienced over the past year, several years? First and foremost, I believe the military itself, the Pentagon, wants to keep the lid on this, primarily because they want the power and they want the tech to themselves so that they can persist in their world domination. Now, they're doing this in behalf of the United States, of which we're both citizens, and that's beneficial in one hand. But what are we foregoing? What greater good are we foregoing, right? For the benefit of all of humanity, not just us and our ability to keep a leg up on our adversaries.
Right.
That's really the first, and we can talk more about that in a bit. But that's really the first one. The second one is, and we hear about this all the time, what's going on outside of government. right? All those special access programs, the black so-called black budget projects that are going on at the Lockheed Martins and the Grummons and the Raytheons and whoever else, all that industrial military industrial complex. Those companies want to keep a lid on disclosure because the minute it's out, now all of their government contracts that they were afforded to reverse engineer and try to replicate that alien tech goes away, evaporates. So they're no longer in the money, right? So they're not going to want it out because they want to persist, keep the status quo. And then
Right.
lastly, just the government itself. I mean, if disclosure happens and the truth about what went on has been going on for the past 75 plus years, the government is going to be in big trouble with its citizenry because now they have to explain why they covered it up, why they lied, why they use disinformation for all these decades. They're going to have a lot of explaining to do, and it's really going to take someone outside of the government or in one of these private industry companies via the Whistleblower Act, which we can talk about, in order to break down this house of cards. And once that happens, if that person comes out with the irrefutable evidence that we have alien tech and they've been here and this is the crash retrieval and this is what we've learned and replicated so far, if they have that proof, then the government's going to have a real hard time keeping the rest of the lid on, because after that it's just going to come crashing down in a big hurry.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you think about it, the black budget. So all the money that we send to the black budget every year, and they haven't admitted that it's for UFOs. It's supposedly for research and development for to improve our weapons. When you look at it, okay, China might be technologically close to where we're at as far as weapons go. Same thing with Russia, maybe. Well, I don't know. With especially with what we just saw
Mm,
over in
makes
Ukraine,
you
I don't
wonder,
know that.
yeah,
Yeah,
how
exactly.
advanced
So,
really are they?
so the question is then: do we need to spend this money? Do we need to take this money and allot it to improving weapons that are already the most superior weapons on the planet by far? And we're at a point already where the weapons that we do have would destroy the planet. So how much more efficient can you get than that as far as uh, annihilating humanity goes?
You can't. And once again, utilize taking the money in the black budget and telling the private industry, hey, do the R&D, reverse engineer the alien tech if that's really there, for the greater good of humanity, instead of making a better bomb or a better this or a better missile or what have you. Take the If you figured out anti-gravity, well then let's make human transports for the benefit of humanity versus some sort of super weapon. Yeah, that makes complete sense to those of us who are for the greater good. But
Right. And you talk about
power
that.
power is and money are tough, what is it, the word, absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's
Right.
in these factions are the US military wants to keep that edge, and to heck with the greater good of humanity right now. I think everybody's feels like they're still at war with these adversaries, these authoritative governments like Russia and China and communists, whatever you want to call it. And until I don't think that's not going to relax first. It has to come the other way. Somebody has to step up and say and be bigger than this and say, here it is. Here's what we know. Here's the tech. Bye bye oil. Bye bye energy issues. We can solve a myriad of issues if we use this product and use this technology and share it. That's a tall order right now. I don't think humanity is widely will be thinks that way widely enough quite yet. A lot of people do, but not enough. And of course, the
Right.
government isn't there yet for all the
Well,
reasons we've
and
been
then I
talking.
guess that leads me into like, okay, so we understand who's keeping the lid on disclosure. It's pretty apparent to everyone out there. What can we do to get to past that? What can we do to bypass the people that are holding these secrets and kind of make our own path to disclosure? Like, what do you think it would take? What is your opinion on that?
It's a great question, and I have two answers. One is and we talked about it already, the whistleblower legislation in the 2023 NDAA and IAA laws, which will, or packages that will very likely pass before the end of the year because they have to, since they're for the next year's budgets. There, we will, that is one avenue by which we can get the inside information out. If the whistleblowers, if the people in the know feel they're protected enough and they have proof positive to take down the house of cards, I think we're going to see some results there. That's the first thing. The second thing is us, it's you and me, and all of your viewers and everybody around here. I mean, I'm an engineer. The technology exists. Avi Loeb and the Galileo project. The technology exists for us to gather our own evidence that we can't seem to get out of the government. You know,
Right.
they give us are grainy videos that they discredit later on anyway and say, oh yeah, that gimbal thing was not anything, and the go fast was parallax. Now we can collect that data, and that's what is happening a lot now. There are everyday people buying, autonomous camera systems that can figure out watch the
True.
skies, see what's coming out, and or see what's there, and filter out the airplanes and the birds and the meteors, and maybe find a few anomalous things. That's what Avi Loeb is trying to do, obviously with a much bigger budget and a lot of highly intelligent people. So there's the other path. Will we strike gold there? Nobody knows, but you're not going to find anything if you're not looking. So I think that's another area where we can help. And anytime I see somebody who's doing that, I support them. You know, there's a lot of people on YouTube who try to do this, and I support them 100% because I think that that's really one way to go, and that we could find it the proof ourselves. And then what's the government going to do? It's like Avi Loeb says, the sky isn't classified. So
Yeah.
we're all free to look in it. And if we see something, it's not top secret. It's for
Right.
everybody.
Right. Now, I know you mentioned some of the YouTubers out there, and we're okay. We can name some names. I know
Sure.
a lot of people I follow. I know you were talking to me about Post Disclosure World,
Yep. Post disclosure world.
Ryan
Um,
Robbins.
Ryan Robbins, he has a attitude that we do for citizens who are trying to collect their own data. You got Tom King, who participates all the time on Thomas Fessler's Disclosure Tonight YouTube
Right.
channel. I mean, he's busting his butt to try and capture something, and he's invested his own money in a ton of equipment and trying to see what he can see in his skies over his house. I mean, there's a myriad of people like that, and then you've got the bigger YouTubers and documentarians and historians, like Richard Dolan and uh, Ross Coldhart and Bryce Gable of the Need to Know, who also have a very similar approach, looking for reasons why and methods to how we can get to where we need to get. The
Right.
government aspect of disclosure through the whistleblower legislation came from our elected representatives, Congress, and that's a positive thing because a lot of the congressional people who don't know anything like we don't know are a little annoyed, and they're like, well, need to find out more, and the only way we can find out is by passing some laws to allow people who do know to come forward. Because the military doesn't go and tell Congress what they know. Of course they don't. The president doesn't know what the
Exactly.
military. We all know that.
Right.
Everybody knows the presidents are kept in the dark, and they can't say that, so they make jokes about it when they end up on late night talk shows, and it is what it is. But yeah,
Well, I
so
mean, my perspective. We've worked together before. I've often said that disclosure won't come from the government. I mean, we would like to hope that they would, and we read these reports in anticipation that they've done the right thing and have gone ahead and said, okay, now it's time to tell the people, and it's heavy on their heart, and it's something that they need to do to push humanity forward. But even with that, I've always said that and felt like, and I know you feel the same way, that it's actually in the hands of humanity, and it's about what we do and things that we potentially could position ourselves. And like you said, just like with Tom King sky watching, those, and then Thomas Fessler and his uh journey to push for disclosure, these types of things that we can do within our power to get to disclosure. um how do you feel about, we also talked about the celebrities and people in influential positions that could actually be the ones to step up and help push this forward? uh, when we talk about who's keeping the lid on disclosure versus ways that we as humanity can push it past the line, what do you feel on the humanity side could be the best path forward?
it's a good question. And people, the average citizen may not know the benefits to humanity that are in the offing if if disclosure happens, and all that maybe we've learned, the military and all of the government secrecy has withheld and has learned over the past 75 years. People don't know what the potential is of that. And so now, if you have, you know, some of the congressional representatives that talk about this, people don't always trust politicians, so they're not going to have influence. But if a celebrity steps up, as you're suggesting, which is a great idea, who says, hey, all they have to do is step up and say, hey, if disclosure happens, all of these issues that the planet currently has with energy issues, electricity issues, disease, transportation, fossil fuels, global warming, all of the things that are plaguing our planet right now, all of that stuff might be erased very quickly if the technology that there's a lot of evidence to support is allowed to come out and be applied for the greater good, not for the super weapon. And that's what if a celebrity were to do that, then you get the groundswell, and then the citizenry pushes that narrative and pushes it to their government representatives, and then they can't ignore it, right? Once the citizenry is like, hey, we want to know what's going on because I want to not have to be paying $5 a gallon for gas. I mean, I don't know what you pay, a heck of a lot more than the rest of us out in
Oh yeah.
California.
Yes,
And
sir.
people people don't if people don't understand that all of that could be gone and very quickly if the tech was allowed to come forth and benefit humanity for the greater good. So yes, I think a celebrity or somebody who has influence that people listen to and trust, whether it be a media person or a Hollywood person, it doesn't matter, a sports figure, if they can educate themselves and push the narrative, then people will follow suit because it's the truth. I mean,
Right.
that's my belief. There's benefit to humanity in there. I mean, I don't want to see us persisting in ratcheting up this military buildup in order that we have a leg up on the adversaries. Why do they have to be our adversaries? Why can't we work together?
Exactly.
And
I
if we
agree.
work together, oh my goodness, what's the potential? One human race. As you've heard me say it, the minute we find life outside of Earth is the minute it's probably everywhere. And I don't care if it's one bacteria on Mars. If it happened in one other place, it's happening in all the places that we suspect, like the James Webb Telescope and all these and the Hubble believe they see, Earth-like planets out there with water. So once we know that, then guess what, guys? Whether you like it or not, we are all one big human race, and we're
One
all
big
one
family.
people. We're one big family. And I know that doesn't suit your power trip or your pocketbook, your greed, but we're all one big family, and it'd be nice to work together. And I honestly believe the galactic community is a little hesitant with us for that exact reason. You know, well, Stanton Friedman put it best when the late Stanton Friedman, whom we all love, he said, the aliens look down and they see a bunch of barbarians engaged in tribal warfare. So they keep
Yeah,
driving. He's
and
right.
worse. Yeah,
We've only had technology for 300 years. What were we prior to that? We were hunter gatherers
right.
farming our land. And now we've had technology for 200 years. Our behavior has yet to catch up
And then
as a species. And if the minute there's life elsewhere is the minute people will have to stand up and say, maybe we aren't so great after all, and we're just part of a bigger community. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually, I
right.
think it's very exciting.
It is, and just the potential of what we could be. Like, believe it or not, you have disclosure, or you have leaving things the way that they are currently, and we know what a mess it is all over the globe. We're heading towards some sort of catastrophic end game. So if we don't get disclosure, the alternative is we're extinct.
Mm,
There's really no gray area there. It's either we do this or human race as we know it changes. I mean, it goes away. So I think
yeah.
when you simplify it that way and you realize that this is not something that we want, this is something that we need, okay? As humanity, we need this. So we need every person that considers themselves a human being to come together. That includes the people in our government, the humans in our government. We'll say that the humans that are holding back the secrets in the secret shadow government. We're all humans, okay? And it's about where do we go from here? How can we get to not destroying ourselves? And
Hmm.
that's really the message at this point.
You bring when you put it in terms like that, and I like the way you put that. We really have no choice. We either go the route of finding the way toward to disclosure for the greater good, or we're not going to survive as a species. And so, back to your point about a celebrity or a spokesperson or a person in government who wants to encourage the masses who may not know, give them the reason why this is important. There it is. Do you want to end up in a nuclear war with Russia over Ukraine? Or do you want to all be working together because we now have no reason to do land grabs and have power trips because we feel bad about the fact that we once had all this territory and we don't anymore? It doesn't matter anymore. Live where you live, and now we have the tech that can make the world a much better place. Then and only then can we become part of the galactic community. That's the next step. But no, it's now humanity survives, advances, gets better, and we go on to the next level of evolution. But no, if people don't see the greater good and we just keep warring and we keep using the tech, hiding the tech to make the more destructive weapon that can destroy the world 1,000 times over instead of 900 times over, where are we going to go, right? There's no this we're not going to be able to survive.
And then if you think about it, we are living our lives right now, and with some of us out there have children, but now think about your children's children. That's what this is for. We're at the end of this. We're pushing. We're on the journey to get there. We're on the later halves of our lives. It's still important to us to make sure that the way we leave the planet is in a better state than it is currently. You always want to pass it on to your descendant your descendants,
Better
and
than
make
you
sure
had it.
better than you had it, exactly.
Yep.
So the point I'm trying to make there is that these are these should trigger human feelings. When
Hmm.
you talk about these things and you position it in these ways, these should trigger those human feelings to make you understand why we need disclosure. And it's like, if you hold the key to it, or if you can be a big help to getting there, then it's actually your duty as a human being to step up and make that sacrifice. Let's look at Snowden, Edward Snowden. Now, granted, he released leaked information that I guess some of it could have been beneficial to humanity, but at the same time, you have to be willing to do something for the greater good of everyone else and make that sacrifice. So I think that's like the point I'm trying to make here. And I hope that anyone that would be watching this, from the smallest person who works at wherever to the biggest person who's in charge of these secrets, the message is, we need to get there. How can we do it? How can you help us get there? So I'm
Yes.
just putting it out there, and I hope that it resonates, and I hope that someone who can make that difference steps up. And truthfully, all of us as a whole can make the difference, but we need to get the thing sparked. As you see, the UAP report is late. It's a law. They didn't deliver it. So how can we make them deliver it? I have a few ideas, but go ahead.
Yeah, and the laws that you're alluding to here, which are the whistleblower protection acts that are in the legislation for 2023, that right there is going to be the means by which the person you just described, who cares about the greater good of humanity, will step up and say, "This is what I know," and hopefully the law protects that person. Um, and that's still in question. But if that person has the irrefutable proof and can bring it forward, then they'll be a hero for humanity. Yeah, so they're going to lose their job, but and their life will
Exactly.
never be the same again. We know that. It's like a Bob Lazar situation, but Bob didn't come away with the irrefutable proof. He came away with a very compelling story that hasn't changed, but without the proof, the government won't cave. Whereas if a whistleblower next year comes forward with the irrefutable evidence, not only will the citizenry step up and say, "Hey, what's going on here? What have you been holding back, government? Why haven't you told us about this?" Um, and it's just going to snowball from there, and the whole thing will come crashing down because at that point, it's out. The cat's out of the bag. So yeah, we
Right.
need that. And to your point, laws are only as good as their enforcement. And the 2022 NDAA was the laws that said you better deliver two reports, and one is by the late, I think it was June 25th, and the other one was October 31st. And October 31st is come and gone, and nothing's happened. And what's the Congress going to do? They can't arrest the Pentagon, right? So we're kind of stuck. And, only unless
Stuck.
there's a huge outcry, maybe you're thinking from the public, I don't know, in this case, it's not the Pentagon,
So
it's the
hear me out.
Department of National Intelligence. Go ahead.
Now hear me out, because I just want to make the point that I love America. I'm pro government, not
Oh
anti
yeah.
in any way. But I definitely want to position something here, because when you talk about we really don't have a choice, okay, this is something that we could propose potentially. Okay, so we want to take the natural path to getting the answers, which is reaching out to our representatives in Congress and having them represent us, which that's their job. And we're currently in the mix of doing that, which is how we have all these things going on currently with the hearings and things like that. So we're letting that play out. Okay. But then when you get to a point where, like you said, Congress can't make them do anything, the law says they should, but obviously they do what they want to do if they choose when they want to release a report.
Hmm.
So then we move to other things. So the whole thing is the whole reason that this is able to happen is because there is something called a black budget. Black budget is funded by us, our tax dollars. Okay, we fund the entire operation. So now hear me out.
I hear. I think I know where you're going here. Keep going.
We sanction Russia, for instance. They're doing horrific things over there. Our answer is to sanction,
Hmm.
cut the money off, cut off the money sources.
Choke them. Right.
We could do the same thing. We hold the pocketbook. So we should be able to, as the people, decide how our money's being spent. We can choose to not put money towards a certain thing as a collective if we all get together and say, hey, we don't want to spend our money on that.
Right.
So I figure obviously there's going to be some surplus in the black budget. Once that dwindles off and that begins to starve, okay, maybe that triggers someone to, okay, we have to come out
We
and do
have to
something, because
comply.
we have to do something.
We have to
Right.
comply and release the reports and do what the law says.
I know that's extreme, a little extreme, but when it's
It
a
isn't. Money talks, right? Now, here's the flip side. Obviously, we don't want to impair our own military. Nobody
right,
does, right?
exactly.
We would be viewed as traitorous if somebody said, "Oh, yeah, you're going to cut off funding to the military because they didn't deliver your report." No, 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 no.
Right.
What you're suggesting is we're not going to starve the military. What we're going to do is
Nope.
starve the black budget projects or the
Yes.
things that aren't critical to our national defense,
Yes,
immediate
sir.
national defense. Because there's a lot of money that goes into this military umbrella that isn't necessarily, well, certainly isn't directly affecting our national security. It's indirectly. They'll argue it's indirect. Like they'll say, well, if you cut off funding, then we won't have that super weapon in 2 years, or that next fifth, sixth generation fighter won't be delivered in time, right? Fighter jet won't be delivered in time. Yeah, I get it, and I'm pro government and I'm pro military too. I don't want anything bad to happen there because all of the service
Exactly.
men and women, we want them to be more than adequately funded and equipped. Never would I want that
Right.
to be slighted. But yeah, if you're going to freely break the law, what other retribution do I have? What other stick do I hold to force you to comply? And it's really the money. So yeah, Congress would have to tread carefully there, but that's an idea. And the citizenry could step up. Obviously, it takes a congressperson to step up and say, okay, here's the money they need. Here's the money they don't need. We're going to hold that back until they send us the report. I don't think people are going to be too upset about that. I mean, I wouldn't be, as long as
Well,
it's made clear, right? As long as it's
n-
made clear that we're not endangering anybody by doing this. Because otherwise, if you don't enforce the rules, they all get broken. It's just
thank
the
you.
way it
And that's
is.
the whole point, because technically it should never get to that point to where we would have to decide. We should trust our military with how they spend the money. We should think that in the best interest of the people, and
Right.
we have always
We
believed that
want that.
and that should be the case going forward. But if it comes down to us funding all these things and then being told, no, we can't tell you about that, or no, we're not going to do that, well, then we have some things we need to work out. Then we need to all come to the table and we need to refigure this thing out, how this thing is, or being more transparent on how the money is being spent. There just has to be more there as far as the transparency. It's more like a translucence at this point where you can kind of see through, but you can't
Mm,
really see through. And that's kind of what with the state that we're at. That's not transparency. That's translucence.
yeah.
So let's get that straight.
It's tough road no matter how you cut it, right? So the laws are going to get passed at the end of this year, and if they aren't being followed, then this road of translucence and enforcement is it's a double-edged sword, and it's tough. It's really tough because
Yeah,
you want to force the compliance, but you don't want to endanger your military or slight your military. So how do you walk that tightrope? So yeah, I
exactly.
mean, and people don't
Exactly.
understand, right? So as soon as if God forbid something like that happens, as soon as some people who aren't informed hear that, oh, Congress is holding back money from our military, how dare they do that? Well, there's reasons, and this is why channels like yours are there, because we need to educate people that these are the hard decisions that have to get made if we want to move toward the greater good of humanity, which we know is out there. I'm here for
Exactly.
that reason, right? We're all believers in the fact that if this comes out, we're all going to be way, way better off because of it. And we won't, and then
Exactly.
all of these black budget things won't be needed so much anymore. Now it'll be, open, and we'll be developing the thing that solves global warming, or the energy source that gets rid of fossil fuels that we know we ultimately need to move on to. Otherwise,
Exactly.
we're not going to survive, man. The Earth can only handle so much. It's a lot
And
smaller now.
that's why I come to you on these topics, Mattel, because I know we talk all the time, and I know your mindset is pro humanity, which mine's is as well. This is a pro humanity podcast.
Hmm.
Anything that any resolution or any topics that we discuss have to positively affect humanity, and if it's not doing that, you definitely won't find it here. So I'm so glad that we got to talk about this. Here's what I want to do. This is pre-recorded, and this is Monday, November 14th. So as of this time, no UAP report. We will do another show once the UAP report comes out, see if there's anything in there. Hopefully, it's the golden ticket. Hopefully, it just says, "Hey, yeah, aliens are here. It's right here. They're just on the papers. Everything's real. Spaceships, everything, renewable energy. Let's go. We're going from
Yep.
here." So hopefully, that's what's in there. But yeah, I guess we'll get back to that. I definitely appreciate you coming through for me, Mattel. You know, we do this. It's just a fun conversation every time we talk. Love to have you back. Please come back whenever you feel that you have something that you want to say to the people to help progress this movement. I mean, it's an open door policy. Please come, and I will be contacting you shortly.
Thanks, my brother. It was my pleasure. I'm here for you. I'd be honored to come back. So yeah, let's make a plan when that UAP report comes out. We'll talk and see what we can find, and we'll do a deep dive and take it from there.
All right, Mateo, totally appreciate it for hanging out here at the Social Dig. We're gonna take it from here. You take care, man.
Cheers.
All right, guys, now it's time once again for my favorite part of the show called What's the Social Dig? And today's topic, why we need disclosure now. Now, with everything happening across the world, the threat of a world war that will end humanity as we know it, with all the division and pure hate that has manifested, all the unnecessary tragedies and losses that we have all experienced and are still experiencing, We are witnessing what could become quickly the end of decency, democracy, and truthfully the end of life as we ever knew it. Now, we have forgotten that the earth is ours as a whole of humanity, and it's us, the many, not the few, that have the power to erase these imaginary borders and collectively set a path for humanity post-disclosure. So today and going forward, I call on all influencers, celebrities, and heads of state to make a major push to bring disclosure by standing up and being counted and help usher humanity into a new world without war, without hate, without the dividing lines of class, status, and poverty. There should be no issue more important than the one we're faced with today. This is a global call to action for every one of you out there, even those who hold the truth. Please don't let an NDA or a piece of paper stop you from saving humankind. Remember, the only ones who lose by keeping the lid on disclosure are also the ones who matter the most, us, humanity. Once again, I'm Mr. Rob G with the Social Dig. Take care.